Thanks for joining us. I'm Chris Ensing. Katerina Georgieva is off tonight. Here's what's making news right now. Testimony in Ottawa turns to Windsor. Allegations police sent mixed messages during the Ambassador Bridge blockade. Another election with voters left wondering, does Windsor Council accurately reflect the city? And can you print off a solution to the housing crisis? How this home plays in the push for affordable housing. But we begin in the nation's capital. The head of the RCMP is saying that the federal government was losing or had lost confidence in Ottawa police a week into the convoy protest last winter. Now, that news comes from text messages that Commissioner Brenda Lucki sent to the head of the Ontario Provincial Police at the time. She indicated that she's having a hard time trying to calm down federal cabinet ministers who were seeing bouncy castles in downtown Ottawa. Today, the OPP commissioner appeared at the inquiry investigating the government's decision to invoke the Emergencies Act to end that protest. He was asked if he, too, had lost confidence in the Ottawa police.
That's a difficult question to answer as to whether I had confidence in the OPS at the time. I was certainly aware of the challenges that they were experiencing, and I did feel with the support that we were providing that there was an opportunity to develop and execute a plan that would bring upon a resolution to this.
Rick says he believed Ottawa police would stop large trucks from going downtown and parking around Parliament Hill. He said that had he known otherwise, he would have asked more questions and could have offered extra resources. Extra resources were at the center of his testimony about the Ambassador Bridge blockade. Today's hearing highlighted confusion here in Windsor, with Mayor Drew Dilkens and then Police Chief Pam Mizuno seemingly not on the same page.
The Public Order Emergency Commission is now in session.
Day 11 of the hearing into the federal use of the Emergencies Act, a law that grants sweeping powers to the federal government, invoked by the Prime Minister after the Ambassador Bridge blockade was cleared. The focus has been on the protests in Ottawa, but today it turned to Windsor.
I do so swear.
OPP Commissioner Thomas Carrick testified today. We learned that on January 31st, the intelligence reports warned trucks planned to block the Ambassador Bridge on the American side, but no dates were mentioned. 3 days before the blockade, intelligence reports that protesters could block the bridge. Carrick saying today the Windsor police chief told him she didn't need any additional assistance. They had another conversation February 9th, 2 days into the protest. Canada's busiest international crossing choked shut.
I had already spoken with the Chief of Windsor and offered support and was advised that there was no additional assistance required.
But in political channels, a different conversation.
The Mayor of Windsor, in fact, had conversations directly with Solicitor General Sylvia Jones and Minister Mendicino. You're aware of that?
I am aware that there was conversations. I'm aware that those conversations resulted in a letter. I'm not privy to the details of those conversations.
Okay. And again, does that strike you as sort of an odd way to request police resources in the circumstances?
It is not the typical way nor the preferred way that police resources would be requested, in particular when just hours earlier I had spoken to the Chief of Windsor, had offered additional assistance. I was advised it was not required at that time.
That day, a pair of requests went to the federal and provincial governments, asking for 100 officers. But that also created confusion.
And there was some confusion. One of the conversations that I did have with the chief from Windsor at the time was it a request for 100 each, totaling 100, or was it 100 in total? Because they went independently, that request went independently as well.
Mayor Drew Dilkens and the Windsor Police Service will testify at this hearing. They did not respond to a request for comment today. Carrick testified that Windsor was the priority protest, needing to be cleared in part because of the enormous financial costs.
The Ambassador Bridge in Windsor was something that we felt we could clear up in 2 to 4 days. It was a priority to resolve Windsor. First, we had the resources available, ready. We had a plan ready to go. And there was an enormous national financial impact on the closure of that bridge.
Now that hearing continues next week. Let's dive into the big story to start this week, Windsor's election. There's one woman sitting on city council, an outcome that some find upsetting. CBC's Jennifer LaGrassa breaks down why women say the city needs more representation.
There will be some new faces in council soon, but nearly all of them are men. Even though 13 women ran for Windsor City Council this year, only one secured a seat. Joanne Gignac was re-elected for Ward 6. When Gignac was first elected to council in 2003, there were 3 female councillors. Since then, the number has only declined. One voter says that Windsor is going backwards.
I think it's really concerning because a lot of the population of Windsor is female. So I don't think that a lot of the issues that maybe women face, or maybe the issues that are municipal that are, I guess, coming from a lens of somebody who's a woman or female, I don't think that those are all being covered right now. And I think that until we have that representation, we don't know what change that'll make.
Gemma Grayhall was a candidate for Ward 8. She's run for political office 3 times in Windsor and lost.
Many women lack the self-confidence. They have family demands. I mean, this is so much of an issue, right? Women see themselves as caretakers. They're usually the ones who the majority of the household responsibilities are falling towards. Women make less money than men.
Other barriers, according to the Canadian Women's Foundation, include stereotypes and bias about a woman's leadership abilities, systemic sexism and discrimination, and a lack of accessible and affordable childcare.
One of the main issues is that there is no one like me on council. There's not many people that are like me on council who are making those decisions from my lens. If there's nobody that has been in my shoes, I don't think that they'd be able to best make decisions for someone like me. And there are so many others like me out there.
Even though Windsor didn't see more women take office, the county had a much different outcome. 4 women were elected as county mayors and 14 as councillors.
I think we all play a role in encouraging more women to enter politics. The first and perhaps the easiest thing you can do is simply ask a woman to run for office. But from a more longer term strategy, I think we need a cradle to career approach.
It's an approach that Ruth says can provide leadership opportunities throughout a woman's life. Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Windsor.
Now, that new council is going to be looking for solutions to the housing crisis. Out in Leamington today, a new project unveiled by Habitat for Humanity. They handed the Bridge Youth Resource Center keys to a multi-unit 3D printed housing project, something they've been working toward for 4 years. It's the first of its kind in North America. And as Dale Molnar reports, it's part of a project that will provide affordable housing for a couple dozen people by early next year.
Oh my gosh. So all of the furniture has been donated by Tepperman, so get to keep it.
The Bridge Youth Resource Center Executive Director Krista Rempel gets the first look inside one of 4 residential units in this multiplex built over the summer on their property. The concrete walls were created with a huge 3D printer earlier this year at the University of Windsor. The Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation kicked in $660,000 for the research into the printing process. The Bridge is paying Habitat for Humanity another $520,000 for the homes through a fundraising campaign. The Bridge is currently working on determining who will qualify to rent them.
Yeah, so who's going to be living here is youth and other individuals and couples. So this is part of that larger project that we were talking about. So these are 4 units, and by the end of the year, we're hoping to have another 8 units, so 12 in total, for occupancy to be early next year.
The other 8 units are being prefabricated the traditional way as 2 more fourplexes and will be assembled next to this 3D printed fourplex. It's all part of an effort to give homes to people who otherwise couldn't afford them.
Windsor Essex has a housing crisis with over 6,000 people waiting on the affordable housing list.
Habitat for Humanity hopes to incorporate the 3D printing method to produce more affordable homes in the future more efficiently.
But what we're looking for in the future is to reduce time, construction costs, reduce the material inputs, reduce waste on the build sites. So that's the goal of 3D printing.
Research and testing on the walls at the university is expected to make that possible.
Like the goal of those tests is to provide results to improve the building codes and to help on the design of next house or next buildings done by 3D printing.
And the Kingston-based company that developed the printing equipment expects to branch out too.
We've done the first multi-story 3D printed structure in North America, and right now we're just completing a building that's going to be the first 3D printed basement anywhere in the world.
This project is the first step toward providing even more housing on land the bridge is purchasing behind their property on Shirk Street. They hope to have them in place within 3 years.
Congratulations, you made us proud.
Dale Molnar, CBC News, Leamington.
To Walkerville now, where a major fire has completely gutted a restaurant. This here is the aftermath of an early morning fire at Mulos Creek Grill. Police say there were no physical injuries, but damage to the building close to $2 million. It is being investigated as a suspicious fire. Windsor police saying the business was the target of 2 recent break-ins. In July, money and alcohol was taken. This weekend, there was a reported break-in, nothing stolen. The office of the fire marshal is also investigating. Windsor police have also launched an investigation after a University of Windsor student reported being sexually assaulted. It happened at 11:15 Tuesday night near Wyandotte Street West and Partington Avenue. Police say that the woman was inappropriately grabbed. When she screamed, the man ran off. Police, they're still looking for that suspect, and it follows campus-wide warnings issued after 2 other incidents happened earlier this month. Students reported being followed to their cars. Police are looking into whether these incidents are all related.
When you are a student and you're having a late class, you should always be on alert when you are leaving campus and walking to a destination of any type. And of course, if you have friends that you can walk with, also if you're walking to your vehicle, make sure you keep your keys in your hand, have them safe, so as soon as you get to your car, you're not looking for anything in your purse or backpack. You can get directly in your car and get to where you need to be.
More Canadians are using food banks than ever before. According to a new report by Food Banks Canada, visits are up by 35% since before the pandemic. The high price of groceries, an obvious factor, but so are rising costs such as rent.
Most of the people who use food banks are renters, and when you're spending, anything above 30% is considered a crisis, but people are spending, 60, 70, 80% of their income on rent.
The head of Food Banks Canada says people who live alone represent nearly half of those who rely on food banks. About 500,000 food bank clients are children. Seniors and students, they're also making more visits. Now, with the healthcare sector still recovering from COVID-19, we're learning tonight billions of dollars in that workforce is going unspent this year. A new report from the province's Financial Accountability Officer projecting a budget surplus for the year, and that could be the norm going forward. Lorenda Redekop explains.
Bottom line, we're seeing surpluses. We're seeing a crap load of money sitting in contingency that is unusually high.
The Financial Accountability Office says normally a contingency fund could be around $1 billion a year, but it expects over the next 6 years, the Ontario government will have almost $44 billion.
These are very high contingency funds, and it doesn't really shed a lot of transparency as to what the government really thinks it's going to do with these programs.
At the same time, the financial watchdog estimates huge spending shortfalls across every government program sector. That's all that red you see. The biggest is in health, only fully funded this year, but over the next 6 years with a projected $23 billion shortfall. For education, the underfunding is almost $6 billion, but the FAO says the government could get rid of all the shortfalls, the total $40 billion, by using the contingency money. Finance Minister Peter Bethlen-Falvey was asked about this.
These are very uncertain times, and that's why it's always the prudent thing to do, to make sure that we've got contingencies in place so that we can face any challenge that we may have.
All 3 opposition parties responded.
Underfunding healthcare when the system's in crisis by $23 billion, why ERs are closing, people can't access the healthcare they need, is hurting people.
So you have a government that's actually benefiting from the high cost of living, and yet they're not passing on those savings to the people that we serve.
And as for those shortfalls,
in my opinion, they're doing that because it gives a picture that we don't have the money to pay education and healthcare workers the money they deserve.
The Financial Accountability Officer says Ontario is on the knife's edge of a recession with high inflation and rising interest rates.
We're not in recession territory yet. We don't think there will be one, but we think we're close.
The FAO also projects the government will continue to run surpluses. However, the most recent budget from the government projects 5 years of deficits. Updated numbers will come in the fall economic statement in the next few weeks. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
We're going to brighten things up here now. If you happened to be in South Windsor last night, you might have noticed something a little extraordinary. After years of being dark, the decades-old Yorktown Square neon sign was all lit up. Now, this thing was built in 1960. It's become an icon for South Windsor and Windsor alike. So, of course, CBC's Mike Evans was on the story. He spoke to Michelle Soulier about the owner, who is the owner of the nearby South Windsor School of Music, about this iconic sign, why it's so important to our city.
Last night, a lot of cars were around, so I decided to take a look around the corner here, and I noticed that the sign was lit up.
And the fact that the sign's lit up now, why is that exciting? Why is that interesting?
It's exciting because it's not usually lit up, and also because it's so beautiful and everyone loves it. Because it's so old and it's so big, it is kind of a relic nowadays. We don't see things like that very much. I would assume that the parts for it and the repairs would be expensive. It has heritage designation also. Just because of the reaction that this sign gets after one day of being lit, I can only imagine how active this space would be with all that energy kind of continuously.
So you saw it last night lit up. What did it look like?
It was half lit up. There seems to be some repairs needed on the sign for sure. And I think that the reason why it's not lit all the time is because of that. Things are just not constructed like this anymore. There's a craftsmanship to this piece. I feel like it's a public art piece and it should be treated as such almost.
Beautiful to see that all lit, but whoa, let's take a second and just appreciate this here too. Nice little orange sky, light poking through it, the Ambassador Bridge, gorgeous out there, gorgeous all day. Not gonna be gorgeous tomorrow, or maybe it will be. Colette Kennedy's gonna give us the full details after the break. No pressure, but you only got a few days left to put together your costume. One creator out east has been working to transform and roll out for treats.
Let's rock.
Oh, that is cool. Ricky White is completing his Bumblebee Transformer outfit in Miramichi. Might not be the scariest costume on the block, but look at how massive this thing is. Every year, fans, they wait to see what this creation is going to be. Hours on the designs. Makes all this by hand. He started making costumes in 2019. Some of them have included the Iron Patriot, as well as other Transformer characters. He says seeing looks on people's faces when they see the designs makes it worth all the hard work. Colette, what do you think?
Dangerous. Like I would not do well walking around in that.
No, yeah. It's getting my bag of candy if it asks.
No, but I love that. It's like people that decorate their houses and they start like basically, I bet on November 1st, he's already doing his next costume for the next year. Yeah, that's awesome. And in the break we were talking, so I am dressing my dog up for Halloween as a bumblebee. So maybe next week I'll be able to share a picture.
Absolutely, send us that photo.
Any excuse, I can get my dog on TV. So wait for it, folks.
We've got the space, we've got the time, Colette, absolutely.
All right, well, we'll see how that goes. But it didn't take a year, I promise. It took a visit to PetSmart. But let's just have a look at what's going on with the forecast for today and our temperatures. This kind of dropping us back towards seasonal. Normal high at this time of year, 12. Normal low is 4. In fact, a little bit on the cool side, but it's kind of one of those things where it's almost one day only, and then we're just starting a little bit of a climb again, a bit of up and down, but you'll kind of see what I mean here in just a moment. And those daytime temperatures, like at 7 a.m., this is where we were sitting, all right? And then we progress this forward, and in some cases, kind of hard to even get out of single digits for the daytime high. So that high pressure in place and that cooler air mass and lots of 8s around. Kitchener, the only one at 7, standing out there with what's happening at the moment. But the winds are fairly light. In fact, in many cases, we've been seeing some calm winds, so that's not too significant here. But as we go into the evening hours, what it means with clearer skies and the lighter winds, we get a lot of radiational cooling, so we lose a lot of the heat through the overnight hours. The only thing that could help with that would be some cloud cover, and it looks as though we'll kind of see a batch sort of skimming in, times maybe getting just a little bit heavier from Windsor across through Leamington, perhaps not quite reaching Chatham-Kent, and so I'm keeping the overnight temperature up a little bit just in the areas where we pick up a bit of extra cloud cover. Otherwise, back into sunshine for Friday. It looks good and dry into the weekend. I wish that I could say that for what's happening on Halloween. It does look light in nature. Look at those overnight lows, and the difference here being what I think is going to be happening with the cloud cover overnight. But unfortunately, I do have to rank some showers in on Monday. Whatever the costume may be, it doesn't look like a rain out, but it looks like you may want to just kind of adjust things for the kids if you can in any way to kind of help protect them. But look what happens with our temperatures. They're going right back up. So Friday into Saturday, 3 for the low. So Saturday's another cool start like tomorrow morning, but then 16 on Saturday with sunshine, increasing cloudiness as this next system is approaching on Sunday, 14 for that high, and then it's milder because of all that cloud cover. And Monday, it looks at this point with the timing, just to fine tune it a little bit, and I know it's still several days away, but kind of some scattered showers earlier in the day, and then hopefully tapering off. Maybe if we get lucky, even leaving by the evening hours, but we'll keep an eye on that one.
That's ideal. We like the way that looks. Also, I just have to ask, is that costume going to be similar size? Like, are you putting your dog on the back of a giant Bumblebee Transformer costume? Or are we talking the birds and the bee Bumblebee?
I need to talk to that fellow in Miramichi, right? Like, maybe
that thing's huge.
Because no, no.
Okay, all right. I'm excited to see what you pull up there, Colette.
Just try and be impressed by a dog in a Bumblebee costume.
We're setting up the expectations here, pal.
Okay.
I love it. Thanks, Colette. Coming up, we'll grab more news. Welcome back. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is on his first official visit to Ottawa. Now he's meeting with the Prime Minister and other Canadian officials. So far, a key focus has been the war in Ukraine.
The United States and Canada working together helped prepare for the rising storm that we saw, and then tried to make sure that Ukrainians have what they need to fend off the aggression and retake their land.
At his first stop, Blinken was joined by both Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly and Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland. They visited a resource center for Ukrainians who've been displaced by the Russian invasion of their country. Now, along with Ukraine, Blinken is talking with government officials about refugees, border security, Arctic sovereignty, and the ongoing problems in Haiti. Israel and Lebanon signed an historic agreement to settle a dispute involving oil and gas fields in the Mediterranean Sea. This U.S. brokered deal, it comes after months of indirect talks. Lebanese and Israeli delegations met in southern Lebanon to deliver separate copies of the agreement. The deal sets a maritime boundary between the countries for the first time. Israel now has full rights to the natural gas in the Karish Maritime Reserve, which has been claimed by Lebanon previously. In exchange, it receives rights to another gas field in the area. The revenues from investments and royalties will help the Lebanese economy, which has been in a crisis. Back here in the city, it is opening night for the Windsor International Film Festival. It's a return to the usual format with 177 feature films and 300 screenings, including a documentary by our own Mike Evans. In September, the federal government gave the festival $500,000 through the Tourism Relief Fund. That was enough to expand WIF to 11 days. The festival runs until November 6th. That's it for Windsor's CBC News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can head to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. Thanks for watching us. The Rick Mercer Report is up next. Have a great night.